fact that I guess the auditor has determined that we are taxable now at the Metzenbaum Center. And so I thought I would come to answer some questions and see what you thought and see what you need. I'll give you a little history. Going back to 2003, the state decided that Medicaid waivers is how the primary funding for the developmental disabled was going to go. And by 2012, they decided that large congregate settings like we had at the Metzenbaum Center, where 200, 220 people were being served during the day, were not legal. Were not something that they wanted to see promoted, and required people to start moving out into the community, doing employment and doing smaller settings in the community. So we started to do that, and we're working through that. We knew that that would mean that there'd be empty spaces in our buildings, and as some of you were aware, we were asking what you wanted to do with the workshop, because our workshop was no longer going to be something we could use. It became something where the Department of Aging used, and I guess the sheriffs. We gave you back the building, and you guys appointed those two into that. So it got used.
And that was in 2012?
Right around 2020 is when that finally happened.
Okay.
So it took some time to get to that. We also were told that our residents there, where we had 40 people living, needed to downsize and get smaller. And then ultimately they wanted us, at that time they said 8 beds. Later in another administration they said 16, because the federal government considered 16 to be the size between large and small. And so they were allowed to keep 2 of the houses. But we knew 2 of the houses would be available. We made those houses available to everybody in the county. We offered them to JFS, we offered them to Department of Aging, we offered them mental health. We went through and had just about everybody come and take a look. And nobody said that they would fit their plans and programs. So what we did at that point was we had a conversation with Emerald Woods, which is run by Joy Black. She has a long history with us, with serving our folks. She's an outside entity, yes, but it's a nonprofit, 501c3. We had an empty building. It could be used. And so we put together a rental agreement with them, and they moved into that in 2019. They were there until 2023 in December. They've since left because staffing issues. They weren't able to maintain the 24/7 staffing, which is what we had required, so that there wouldn't be problems in anything with the neighborhood. For us, we saw it as having something that we would have had to pay for the maintenance on, saving the taxpayers by renting it out at $48,000 a year. It was something where we didn't have to maintain that. We did not make a profit. That covered the good portion of that, but not the entire portion of even that. So we didn't make a profit. They were a nonprofit venture. There was a meeting in September with the Chester Township trustees. At that point, there was a comment made that if you're renting it, then you have to pay taxes. And I guess that's where we land today.
Well, I was at that meeting with you, Don.
Yes.
And the fiscal officer was boisterous about the county owning the property and no taxes at the end, and the 501c3s are getting a good deal. You know, and she was, you know, because the taxes include, you know, for the township, there's Sutherland Police, the fire department, and so on. So that was the outcry that night from
Yes.
the fiscal officer.
Agreed.
Okay.
And I guess even to back up a little further, the property was donated or gifted back years ago.
1965?
65. And the intent was to serve government purpose, right? And that's been part of the deed restriction all along, correct?
Yeah, there's a deed restrictions on there from an organization that made the donation back in 1965. That required that it was for a DD purpose as much as possible, and so we have those deed restrictions. The unfortunate thing is that organization disbanded in 2002.
Right.
So 20 years ago they disbanded. It's hard to deal with the deed restriction on somebody that no longer exists. But we've been trying.
In challenging ways to keep that property functioning and still providing service to the county, which I think you've done a very good job over the years in finding different different ways to do that. You know, I know there's lots of different entities across the county that utilize that for either meetings or gatherings or, you know, a whole different bunch of reasons. But, so if you could just tell me again, because that's a big piece of property. I mean, I think it's over 40-some acres,
It's
correct?
34 acres.
Yeah, 34, okay.
There are 9 buildings on it,
Yeah.
roughly 120,000 square feet of building space.
Mhm.
The house that was rented is about 3,600 square feet
Okay.
of building space. So it's one of 9 buildings on the property.
And just to be clear, so I understand, I know a little bit about this. I've heard, you know, through our office, but what I've heard is that the auditor's office is putting or saying that there's a tax due amount on the entire piece of property, not the piece that was utilized. Even, you know, even to say, if it was, you know, for not a nonprofit or government purpose, and it was taxability. In my eyes, it would just be that piece of square footage, right?
I understand where you are, and I would
Yeah.
agree with you that
Yeah.
if indeed that rental of that one building,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how it would apply to the entire complex, but
Okay,
what I've seen is a bill for $771,000, going back for 4 years with penalties and other things. That's
Mhm.
just the bill that I've seen.
and have you tried to discuss this with the auditor's office or the auditor?
No, there was no conversation between us and the auditors at any point.
Okay, and there's been no follow-up or any, so there's been no discussion?
No.
So they just sent you the bill?
I've seen the bill, I heard about the bill from you guys, and I went and looked it up online,
Okay.
so.
And the fee of, like the penalty was
I think,
over
if I remember,
$100,000?
$111,000.
And where are we at this point? Basically just saying, pay it or else, or where are we at?
I believe it's going to be appealed to the state tax commission,
Yeah,
where I expect it to be overturned, because I know that in many counties, what we're doing is no different than what's happening in many situations.
mhm,
Government renting to nonprofit agencies, as we've downsized and gone from being where the federal government said that county boards can no longer provide the day programming and the transportation, many of the counties have rented their spaces to outside nonprofit entities.
mhm.
So I know it's going on throughout the state, so I don't assume that this is something extraordinary.
Right.
Well, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, many or possibly all of the homes that are in the county that are owned by these organizations are also classified as nonprofits along with no tax.
Correct,
Am I correct?
correct.
You know, so all of a sudden, we've got a situation where this same organization is leasing that space out as a nonprofit, but yet we're still being, you know, in a position that there's tax. I mean, my biggest concern is that, you know, you guys do a great job, and it's almost like, what direction are we going with this for our, you know, DD, you know, clients? You know, we have a lot of, you know, men, women, and children, and you know, and we've had these discussions how many times, is that the age continues to grow for care and for needs. And so that means that your population continues to grow also, and the costs continue to grow. And you know, you and your board have done a phenomenal job of trying to keep, you know, the finances in check, of being able to make it, you know, doable for the county to be able to manage, and for your organization to continue to serve these people. But yet, you know, we're basically looking at a $700,000, you know, blow that is just hard to swallow.
And basically, that $700,000 comes out of our tax levy.
Right.
That's where it'd have to come out of. It's taking the money away from the tax
Yeah.
levy and then spreading it out.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we get part of that back. It's taxpayer dollar paying for taxpayer
All right.
bills.
Yeah.
So what's the recourse? I would imagine there's got to be a process through our auditor's office where you can come in and either appeal it or explain it or you know, I don't know if it's our auditor's office that decides that matter, or is it the state that decides the matter?
I don't know at this point,
Yeah.
because technically, it's going to you guys, because
Yeah.
you're the owners of the
Right.
property.
Right.
So I
No, I
don't know.
appreciate you coming in and,
Yeah.
Give
It's
us
something
the
that we
details.
certainly had no desire to do anything wrong. We thought what
No.
we were doing was appropriate
right.
and certainly helping the community.
And let me ask you, when we brought Emerald Woods,
Mhm.
I would imagine that we had some type of MOU or agreement written up with them, correct?
We have a lease agreement.
And that agreement, did it go through the APA that represents Metzenbaum or the
I
Commissioner's
believe-
office?
I believe all of those go through the
Yeah,
APA.
yeah. So it's been looked at and signed off by our prosecutor's office?
I believe so.
Okay. And was there any, at that time, any acknowledgement or discussion about potential tax liabilities?
No, the first time we heard anything about it was when we were at the Chester Township trustees.
Okay. So the Chester Township trustees filed a complaint, I guess? Is that how, or?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
How much they spend.
And then, and when was that complaint filed, do you know?
I do not.
No.
Sometime probably since our meeting in September. so
September. It's-
October, November.
So fairly
December.
recent? Fairly
Recently.
recent. Okay.
So how many houses are there?
There are 4 houses. There's the workshop, there's the bus garage that's shared with West Geauga West Geauga Schools. There are 2 maintenance buildings, shed/maintenance buildings, and then the main facility, which is, in the neighborhood of 5,500 square feet.
Do we lease the bus garage to the school?
Yes.
Okay, and how
That was
much?
put together, that cost about $3.5 million to build. They were representing 2/3 of it, and we carried that because we had the money in our reserves to carry that. They're paying us back over time. I think they pay us somewhere in the area of about $100,000 a year as a payback.
Where are we at in that?
It started in 2011, so we're about 12 years in.
Okay.
Um,
And how far along are they in paying that off?
I think we had a 30-year agreement.
30. And that, I'm assuming, is tax exempt?
I would assume so. We didn't, that was all put together by the prosecuting attorney's office as we were working together. So we assume it's all tax exempt, but that's part of what's been taxed.
Yeah. Because I would assume there's probably other examples out there, I'm just not thinking of which ones they are, but where there's, either a space being leased from the county, or by, so that's
Yeah,
not being, pointed out like this one. Either they all are or they all aren't. I don't know.
yeah, I would agree.
I
I'm
mean, I
sure
don't
there
have
are
the-
situations where public entities are leasing space to different folks for different purposes.
Mhm.
And I assume they are all still tax exempt. but-
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I appreciate you coming in and I mean, it's already been brought to our attention, but, giving us a little more background and detail on it. And we're going to continue to look into it further and see what the next steps are.
I know there's a groundswell of support for developmental disability on this out there. We've gotten quite a number of calls. I've spoken to a lot of people about this that are really upset that this is even an issue. So 100% I support you guys.
Thank you.
And hopefully we're going to get past this here soon and focus on the things that we should be doing and need to get done for the people. So, yeah.
So out of the 4 houses, how many are empty?
There are 2 empty right now. Our board has made the motion to return those to you to determine how best to use it. We've tried to find people to use it, and at this point, we don't have any interest from any of the government entities that we've approached. At this point, we're ready to turn it, like the workshop, turn it back over to those 2 houses, House A and House B, are empty at this point. So they're both available to yours to be used if you guys want to determine how best to use it.
I know, wasn't there interest in the past about utilizing it for, wasn't mental health talking about maybe?
They were originally, but some of their funding would be limited based on the nature of the housing.
Oh,
So, and we required when we leased it that it had 24/7 staffing. I'm not sure that the community would be even happier if something was where there would not be staffed. So, yeah, at this point, it is something we're turning back to you because we have 2 buildings we can find no use for.
And the other, I guess what we call the workshop, where, you know, in years past, there was always a business running out of there, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. What was that business?
Well, it was Metzabom Sheltered Industries,
Yeah.
who served our clients. They were a 501c3, and yes, they were there for many years.
Right, and was that taxed?
No.
No. And what about since then? Has there been other entities that have,
When we left, well, we had one of our transportation providers, Our Lady of the Wayside, was renting space there
Mhm.
for a while.
and were they taxed?
They were not. They were providing a DD service just like everybody else.
And in this Emerald Woods, were they providing service to DD?
Well, they were here, they served 6 of our clients. So,
About a third of our population.
And now they're being asked to be, or well, their space, not them, but the space they've utilized is now being asked to be taxed.
that's what the determination was, yes.
Okay. And was there any explanation as to who made that decision, or where that came from, or?
I don't know
There's
anything about that.
no communication with your office?
No, there's been no communication from the auditor's office to us.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have, but,
You know me, Don, I'm always in
I
favor of
appreciate
the
it. Thank you.
501c3s that help people that can't help themselves.
absolutely.
And that's really what we were trying to do, was help out in the community. So,
Well, thank you for coming in.
Can I say something?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Joy Black from Emerald Rose, and I wanted to thank Metzenbaum for how they helped us. They changed lives for us. And we would love those properties. I mean, they were just so conducive to good mental health and to an environment where they were accepted. And I'm very grateful to God and what he's done for us.
Well, we appreciate the work you do, and can I ask you why you're no longer utilizing the
When
property?
COVID hit, we were hit with no staff, like most health facilities, and we're just like Geauga Hospital. We can't keep staff. We get staff that are willing to work. I think COVID had something to do with work ethic in our community, frankly. So
Yeah.
it got to a point where my daughter and I couldn't work long shifts or be called out without notice to cover the homes. We were losing our lifeline. I'm currently learning how to cook for my husband again.
Yeah.
So we had to make a decision, and we made the decision to consolidate the 2 homes into the one that's on Mayfield in Munson Township. We also have a home in Burton, which is strictly mental health, independent mental health. But our residents from Metzenbaum moved to Joyce Place, and they really did very well with the adjustment. We're pleased with that, but it doesn't replace the environment at Metzenbaum.
Well, maybe there's still a possibility down the road.
And if I can ask you, do you pay taxes on those 2 properties?
Joyce Place is not a not-for-profit. We do, the one in Brown is not-for-profit.
Okay.
The one in Burton, I'm sorry, is
So
not-for-profit.
on that one, there's no taxes.
No taxes.
And that would have been under the same corporate veil that you would have been over at DD with?
Brown Place has a separate 501c3. Emerald Woods is under Emerald Rose.
Okay.
And Emerald Rose, we'd hope to expand, but we just have to deal with the staffing.
Well, if there's anything we can do, or if Don, obviously he bends over backwards trying to find solutions to issues. That's what he does. And we've been very appreciative of him, with the major curveball from the state and the method that they're being told to use. But he's done his best to keep that property. It's a fantastic property. We hope to continue to utilize that and be able to have that serve the residents of the county into the future. But, again, we support what you're doing, and Don will do whatever he can to help you if you ever do need to utilize that again.
Well, thank you, I'll
Yeah.
consider that.
Yeah.
I do want to know if there's people in this room who aren't aware that Metzenbaum has programs that reaches out to the community. We still go to Metzenbaum's programs, and they're of great value to all of us. But they shouldn't be, this isn't abused, I think, it shouldn't be abused like this. My personal opinion.
Sir?
Yeah, thank you.
Clarify one
Just state
quick
your
point.
name.
I'm Dennis Schmidt, Dr. Dennis Schmidt. I was the chair of the board in those days. And I went and met with what was left of the family Metzenbaum Foundation before any of this kind of rental happened. And I asked them, do you have any issues with us doing this kind of thing? And absolutely not, as long as it's supporting your community and it's nonprofit support. And of course, I told them that's exactly what it is. And at that point, before the board dissolved, they agreed that it was perfectly okay with them. So I just wanted that to be clear, so that if that comes up, they agreed with it. And they were very happy that we would do that. Okay?
And what year was that?
Oh gosh, this was in 20, I don't quite remember, but let's see, I stopped being on the board 3 years ago, and it would have been 2 years before that.
Somewhere
So,
around 17.
yeah, around 2017. And it was the last living member of the family. And basically, and we were friends, you know, we belonged to the same club. So, and so I sat down with him and said, are you okay with this? He said, absolutely. You know, he's dead too, so.
So is the Cleveland Foundation involved in any way anymore?
Yes, the Cleveland Foundation now holds their little bit of funds, but it is so small. They spent it down.
Okay.
Okay, so it's so small that it
There's
doesn't
really not
really
much left.
exist.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Cleveland Foundation was the successor for the financial side of the Bessie Benner Metzenbaum
In
Foundation.
the distribution.
Right.
And when we brought up the issue with them of the deed restriction, they said, we have nothing to do with that. We didn't accept the deed restriction side of things.
I see. Okay.
They had no successor component to that. They simply took over and invested the money that they had in their account.
Okay. Well, this seems to me to be a very easily solvable correction to this
I think so.
mistake, if you ask me. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you
Dave.
to the board also.
Hey, hi. Any other comments, Dave? Anything? You're a board member
Yeah.
now. For how long have you been on the board, Dave?
I've been on the board, I'm starting my fourth year, right?
Fourth year?
Something like that.
Thanks for doing
And,
that.
I'm very disheartened with the lack of communication that we're getting out of some sectors here. This is something, you know, my earlier life, when I started part-time at Township, you know, the auditor's office was seen as somebody who was a partner and would work with people who weren't as versed in the law and make sure they're doing it the right way. But they do it in a very professional, quiet way. And it just seems like now it's more like, let's score points or something's going on. Like, what is going on? Because it's very disheartening to people who are just trying to serve the developmental disability community and all the other agencies and employees of the county that I think see all this dysfunction and like, what in the world is going on? So that's just a general comment that I think, you know, it's like the guy that got beat up in LA said, can't we just get along? You know, can't we communicate? Can't we be reasonable? You know, if there's a tiny part of the Metzenbaum campus that it appears might be used for something that doesn't fall into the part that allows for the exemption, that you isolate that and you calculate based on that. You don't just say, okay, the whole thing is no longer tax exempt. I mean, it makes no sense to me. But, you know, I'm not an expert in the area, so maybe I'm off base.
No. Thank you, Dave.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate you coming out. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, I did state that.
We'll be in touch.